Hi. Everyone calls me Rasputin, but you can call me Raz. And I'm here to welcome you to the Xbox Unlocked podcast, the world's #1 Xbox podcast.
What's happening, friends? Welcome to Podcast Unlocked, episode 510 for September 7th, 2021. I'm Ryan McCaffrey, joined by my friends Miranda Sanchez.
Hi, hello. I'm back.
Good to have you back. And Destin Legary, about to be gone.
Bam! Hey, everybody.
We're going to miss you for the next month, my friend.
Yeah, I'm going back on paternity leave for a month. So, yeah, not going anywhere. Just going paternity leave.
Yeah, just got to tend to the family, have some good
Got
family
to clarify
time.
that at the front, Ryan.
You know, you never know what you're going to get on this show. That's part of the fun. Anyway, we have a lot to talk about this week, starting with something that I totally forgot about last week, mostly because Miranda wasn't here, and I had it in my head. Well, I can't talk about this without Miranda, so she is back, and so we must speak of the latest major Xbox Game Studios release, that being Psychonauts 2. Miranda, how much fun are you having with this video game?
It's such a delight. I just feel so refreshed when I play this game. So I know we all have those moments when you really connect with a game and you just like feel so happy to be back in that game. You're like, oh, when am I going to be done with this so I can go play? That's how I feel about Psychonauts 2. I've been taking it a little bit of a different path since I did do the preview. Yeah. And that preview got me. I played so much, guys. I played so much in that preview, which is fantastic. But that also meant that in the second playthrough, I wanted to like kind of give myself a little bit of a space just because I just played through it and I had to like blast through it. It's a kind of a different experience. So now going through with Psychonauts 2 again and with a full release, I've really been taking my time and I'm trying to 100% everything. So
nice.
Just to clarify too, if you are just getting into this game, you can't actually get everything right off the bat because you have to revisit levels with later powers. So what I do is I essentially sweep a level with as much as I can because I just really want to start unlocking things and getting like max abilities and all that good stuff. So that way, whenever I do go back, it'll be a lot simpler. But in the meantime, it's just almost sad if you don't explore everything because there's so many just like little gems of like quips and phrases from just random NPCs everywhere. Everything is so funny. The characters are like, you know, of course, the characters are playing as and like the primary characters are really reactive, but also the just random office NPCs and people around the world. It's just so cool to hear what they have to say about weird things. Also, you can kind of like see into people's mind's eye. If you guys don't know much about Psychonauts, of course, you have psychic powers and there's a variety of them. And one of them lets you see someone's perspective and how they view Raz and the other people around them. And it changes so much. And it's so cool to see that little extra detail of like, oh, somebody use him as like the next version of this character, or he looks like an egg. I don't know, or like a little baby chick. And so, because like someone who's like a mentor and trying to like make sure Raz is safe, and it's cool to see that perspective. And it's just again another added detail upon layers and layers and layers of details in Psychonauts 2. It is a constant joy. It is so funny, and so far, it's probably my favorite game I've played this year. Which is saying a lot. I mean, I've played a lot of games this year, and I guess there's not been as many like big smash hits, and there's more I want to play. But so far, like this is the biggest contender for my game of the year so far.
You are hardly the first person to say that in the games media space or just in the general gaming community. It is going over. I mean, I have to imagine. I don't know if Double Fine's surprised or not, but they've got to be on cloud 9. They've got to be thrilled with the reaction so far.
Yeah, and I'm just grateful that this game happened because I played Psychonauts earlier this year, the first one, to sort of get a feel for the game and to kind of get ready for this release finally coming out because we've been waiting for it for a long time. And it definitely felt dated, but the imaginative design and just like the funny, I guess, sort of like weird drama they sort of pair with their comedy just works so well. And seeing that come to life again in Psychonauts 2, which is like, of course, a modern version of that with all the imagination, all the really clever design, and it also like says a lot of things. Like it has something to say about like a lot of emotions and mental health and other things like believing in yourself and responsibility and all these other things as well. uh, in just such a poignant way that doesn't ever feel like it's talking down to the players. It's just really wonderful. So I agree, Ryan. I'm sure I hope they're happy because they did a fantastic job with what I've played so far. Of course, I'm not at the end, but I will get there, of course. So
yeah, as on cue, the construction resumes outside right as we press record on the podcast. So pardon my noise in your earphone if that's the case. But yeah, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Miranda. I think Eric Walpaugh co-wrote this script with Tim Schafer, and Eric, of course, being most famous for having co-written, or he may have been the main writer on Portal 2. So that gives you an idea of the resume of this particular gentleman and the talent involved. So it's no surprise to hear that the story is that layered and that just wonderful to experience. I'm only about probably 3 or 4 hours in myself, but I'm having also just a phenomenal time with it. I feel like, and I'm going to go to Destin here in a second. I feel like it's almost like a throwback in a way. I feel like we just don't get a lot of games like this anymore in this. And I don't even quite know how to put my finger on it. Like we get plenty of great platformers. I mean, my probably personal front runner for game of the year at the moment is probably Ratchet and Clank on the PS5. I'm completely enamored with that game. And so sure, we get good quality platformers, but there's something else going on with Psychonauts 2 that I can't quite quantify, but it just feels kind of old school, but also just in a way that's fresh because we don't get things like that anymore. Miranda, am I making any sense to you as somebody who's also playing this game?
Absolutely. Like, I hear what you're saying. It's like that adventure platformer feel. I always liken it to games that I played when I was a kid and like varying quality of games. A lot of times I liken this to sort of like Battle for Bikini Bottom, right? There's a lot of things to collect. It's very open in these levels. It's very colorful. And it's just fun. Like there's a very big focus on finding things, and what those things do vary. And of course, their importance and how well they're designed vary across games. And I think that's what you see with Psychonauts. Like, of course, you have the figments that are just everywhere. And then you have like all these other certain upgrades in which you can find a lot of this information on their guide. Psychonauts 2 guide on IGN, just throwing that out there. But it's exactly that. And I think that humor that it has too is just iconic to some of those games where they're just a little bit more fun. I mean, that's it, right? It's sort of a fun, goofy platformer. That doesn't mean it can't have something to say. It's just it's sort of style in its tone that is evocative of some of those older games.
Destin, how about you? Have you had a chance to spend much time with Psychonauts yet? And where are you locking in with it?
Yeah, so I played the intro, the T thing that we're looking at right now. And I got to like the main area, and the stuff that really stood out to me was just how smooth the combat was and how the powers like immediately start building up upon each other. I really, really enjoyed that aspect, and also how they take you through just the platforming basics. And I'm watching in this footage how those things compound as abilities start to unlock. So it has me excited about, what the rest of the game has in store. Yeah, I'm pretty early on, but I was very impressed by how they've taken Psychonauts and added a lot of polish and new combat things and new traversal items to the game to make it a little, I don't know, modern, for lack of a better word. I know I said it twice, but yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, I guess before we move on to our next topic, the final point I'd want to make on Psychonauts 2 is what a road for this game. I mean, it's something that, the first one was 16 years ago is when it had come out. And the first one went through kind of the ringer in its development cycle. It was originally signed as a first-party Microsoft exclusive for the original Xbox. Microsoft ended up dropping the game. It kind of languished for a little bit, and then Majesco picked it up, and it did end up coming out as an original Xbox exclusive in 2005. And then, time went on, and it kind of, as I recall, I can't say this definitively. As I recall, it didn't sell great at the time. Definitely critically appreciated, got a lot of love. And then over time, it kind of built up that cult status of like, all right, the second one would be amazing. Could there ever be a second one? You guys remember Notch, the Minecraft guy at one point said he would fund Psychonauts 2, and that never came to fruition. But then they crowdfunded it through Fig, and it's been a long road. And Microsoft bought the studio in the meantime, and now it's come full circle where Microsoft, who originally signed but never published the original, picks up the studio and thus the sequel and puts it out at the end. So kind of a poetic, just a wonderful poetic conclusion to the story. And just kudos to Tim Schafer and everybody on the Double Fine team, because they just did a tremendous job with this game. And I'm having a great time going through it. And like you, Miranda, I'm taking my time. I'm not rushing this thing. I'm just sort of savoring it as I go. So everybody should play it. It's on Xbox Game Pass. You don't have an excuse. Jump in, try it out, see what you think. Next, it's the Miranda Show this week as we welcome her back, because, Miranda, next up, you were the one person in the IGN US office to have gotten some hands-on time with Call of Duty Vanguard multiplayer, a game that has the reaction hasn't been great, which I think is more just about going back to the World War II setting than anything else, from what I can see on just scraping the top level of YouTube comments. But actually playing the multiplayer, you've got a preview on IGN, which I hope everybody will go either read and or watch on either IGN or our YouTube channel. But what did you think, Miranda?
So, yeah, I hope that's a pretty telling first comment for this. It was a bit rough. Graphically, not quite where I thought it would be, but of course it is a beta, so I do try to sort of reserve my comments on those sorts of things, just because, like, oh, things are going to change, stuff will happen, or I guess maybe a beta build. I'm not too sure exactly which build we played as part of this preview event, but I'm assuming it's going to be the same, or if at least similar to the one that's about to be in the public beta on September 10th. The weapons were all fine. Like, everything, it feels like Call of Duty. Like, that's kind of just the baseline you expect, right? And it's kind of looking at everything else as like, what else are you putting around this version this time to make it feel unique or important or special? Let's talk about the new things first, because I think that's the most notable. So let's talk about combat pacing, which is a new filter they're adding to multiplayer. So there are 3, I believe it's tactical, assault, and blitz. And the big one they really focused on with us was blitz, which is what it essentially does is push the map count and player count to the limit. So not map count, but the player count on the maps to the limit. So for instance, I think we did a 48 player on this one objective-based map. I think blitz works well with like kill confirmed or team deathmatch, or just something that gets you really excited. Just go run and gun. Like, just the chaos there is a lot. And whenever you have to do something, say, objective-based, like one that they introduced is called Patrol, I did not like this mode. I thought it was sort of goofy, and it's what I framed it in my preview. It is this one zone that moves around the map, so it's very domination-esque, and you just have to follow it, and whoever's in the zone gets points. Whoever's not in the zone, of course, doesn't get points, and then if there are 2 people in the zone, it's contested. But, like, not even kidding, it just slowly moves around the whole map. So you are just throwing your body at, just like hoping to stay in it to get some points. And so when you pair this with like blitz, which of course these filters are optional, but in what we were playing, it was not optional. If you are trying to go for the zone, you're basically just throwing your body. You're just sacrificing yourself over and over and over to try and get points for your team, because there's so many people in this game. Like, your entire team could not fit in the zone, which is like, 24 people. So that's a lot of people. The zone's really small. And so after a point, I kind of noticed myself and other people maybe getting a little tired of doing that, because people just stop going after that and just like flanking, and instead just like taking out enemies and getting just crazy kill streaks. So this is kill streaks, not score streaks. So it's even more of an incentive to not go for the zone, because it's like, man, I could be, not mowed down and just go run around and go get my kill streaks up. And, and in turn, you are helping your team because you're clearing out enemies, but the respawns are so fast and it doesn't really matter. So it's just like this weird loop of chaos. And the PR team were very much like, like Patrol is going to introduce a different kind of meta. Like, you're going to have to play differently. And I'm like, but does Call of Duty need that? Do we really want that in our multiplayer? But of course, this is just a mode. So, when I go to it eventually, I just won't play this. That's fine. I just won't play Patrol if I have the choice. As far as the maps go too, I was a little on the fence about them. There are two that I liked well enough, two that I just never want to touch again. The game is launching with 20 maps, so hopefully those will... Yeah, it's a lot. So hopefully that means it won't be as much of a problem at launch. But overall, like, not to drag this out too long, my takeaways are just sort of middle of the road. Like, of course, they're going to make a lot of updates and improvements, and that's just what happens with these multiplayer modes. But I think compared to a lot of others, it was a little underwhelming. Another thing they tried to add to this was these sort of destructible environments. I think we just saw one if you're watching the video a second ago. Basically, you can just run through boarded up things and they'll just shatter. And so the idea with that is they're saying, like, oh, it adds like an element of surprise, or you get a new vantage point. And like, that's cool for other games, but it doesn't matter in Call of Duty. Like, unless you're camping somewhere and just like, I'm going to camp into this corner. And then when the time is right, I'll shoot through these boards. Like, that doesn't happen.
You just Kool-Aid man through the walls.
Exactly. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And then once it's done, it's done. And so then otherwise, we played this one map with a hotel, or on a hotel, and it was like this top floor. And that's where I noticed a lot of this destructibility, because like you're indoors and there's just like literally garbage everywhere. Cause like the bottles are all blown up, the doors are all broken. And it's just like, I mean, if anything, it just makes the maps look a little messy. So, I mean, messier than they are. So it's just like, I mean, it's fine. There's just holes everywhere now. Okay, I wouldn't say it actually adds any value to what we played, but that remains to be seen. Maybe there's a map that makes a lot of use of it. Maybe it's all just boarded up walls, and then you have to make your own path loudly. Who can say?
Yeah. Well, I feel like you haven't been this kind of mediocre coming in, off on the first multiplayer preview, in a number of years. So this is, it's I mean, it's good. You're giving your honest reaction, but and the pessimistic thing in my brain that's going off while you're talking is the question of, you're totally fair, and we should say yes, it's a beta, things can change, but some games beta tends to just mean marketing beta, where it's basically done and they're just kind of like, it's basically a demo, right?
Right.
But sometimes it's absolutely a beta and there's major feedback that comes in. So I guess we won't know till it comes out where on the scale that Call of Duty Vanguard multiplayer will fall on that, if things are not really going to change in, I guess the game's out in just under 2 months, or if we will see some of the feedback from yourself and others in the beta that gets incorporated into the final game.
I'm very curious too about the other maps and how those are designed, because I feel like that's been largely a big problem with me in Call of Duty is the past few years, and I guess last year too was just sort of meh on the multiplayer. Like Modern Warfare, I think was the last Call of Duty multiplayer I really liked. Maps
that was
and
fun.
spawns.
Even I played that, and I've kind of given up on Call of Duty multiplayer because I'm too old.
Right, and like some of the maps and spawns still just feel a little uninspired. I think they're getting better. Some of them seem more interesting, or sometimes they do something and then they're just like, okay, but if you're going to do this weird sort of like circle map, you also have to get the spawns right, so that way you're not just sitting somewhere literally spawn camping and making me, part of the meta, like I just got to spawn camp or else you don't win. It's like you spawn camp or you be spawn camped. It's like I don't want to do this. Anyway, yeah, it's just one of those things, and I'm curious what everyone else is going to think over time, and curious to see how this beta or this, I guess, whole multiplayer suite will end up over time. But not crazy about it.
I'm surprised to see the like Overwatch follow the zone thing in Call of Duty.
It's not good, Destin.
Yeah, hearing that it doesn't work for this game is a bit of a bummer, though. Yeah, I mean, for me, here's my thing about Call of Duty. I don't know if anybody on the panel or anybody listening feels the same way, but with Warzone out there, if I want to play Call of Duty, I'm going to open up Warzone and play a round of Warzone. I have to wonder if that has done anything to the sales of these core releases, or if they continue breaking records. I haven't had a chance to look into it, but I mean, for me, they're probably making hand over fist cash on the microtransactions or the cool things for the seasons in Warzone. But yeah, if I need my Call of Duty fix, that's what I'm going to do. I don't particularly feel incentivized to play any of these campaigns anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, last time I feel like I remember seeing some Activision statement, I don't know, last year or something that said engagement was just up across the board. Like Warzone was actually having a net positive effect on everything. Don't quote me on that, but yeah, you bring up a good point though. Like long term, is the current model sustainable of having a new multiplayer mode each year and Warzone, and then having a campaign, or will kind of the business model and release format of Call of Duty evolve over time? I mean, I guess they have no reason to change anything while they continue to be the number one selling game literally every year. So, as always for me, I'm campaign or bust. So I do want to play the campaign. I'm eager to give it a try. I can't say I'm particularly excited about it sitting here now. It's like another World War II campaign.
Exactly. It's just World War II again.
But I'll give it a go.
It's the Madden of shooters, right? Like every year, you can buy your Call of Duty game and get a pretty good experience if you're into Call of Duty. So clearly there's a massive audience for this property that continues to be there. I'm honestly amazed that there's no franchise fatigue, because I feel franchise fatigue. Like I've been covering Call of Duty for 15 years or however long the franchise has been around. And I'm like, yeah, it's Call of Duty. It's there if you want to play it. But I feel like I've done every Call of Duty thing that I'm ever
to your own point, though. Yeah. I think the Madden comparison is fair, and Madden doesn't suffer franchise fatigue. I mean, there's criticism of it, of various modes and things within it from the community every year, but it continues to crush at the box office every single year.
Yeah.
So although there's a different, go ahead, Destin.
There's just like what Destin wants personally, but I totally recognize that there's a market for it, right? Yeah. Like I may be feeling franchise fatigue, but clearly the sales indicate that's just not the case. People want to Call of Duty every year. Yeah. And they'll continue to sell. So
I mean, I'm glad, regardless of how Vanguard turns out, I'm glad that Sledgehammer's seemingly back in the game for good, because I think we'll get better games overall with the 3-team 3-year cycle than, for a little while there, it was compressed back down to Treyarch and Infinity Ward on 2-year schedules. So I am happy that seems to be the 3-and-3 model seems to be back. All right, let's just move on here to the big news of the week, the thing that you clicked on in the thumbnail, which is Alan Wake. Yeah, his screen fell asleep behind me. There we go. There he is. There's Alan Wake. He's back, and I could not be happier. So we have a remaster confirmed. It's going to be out sometime this fall. They have not put a date on it yet. It's Remedy, of course. But back in June, Alan Wake Remastered appeared alongside Final Fantasy Remake within the Epic Game Store backend data. Now, this is relevant in that Epic has a publishing deal with Remedy for new projects. So it's like there is a connection there. Now, a little over 2 months later, listings showed up over the weekend before the confirmation today, Tuesday, as we record, for PS4, PS5, and Xbox versions of Alan Wake Remastered. And the listing said October 5th for the release. That is, we do not have an official date given in the formal announcement, but it's probably correct, barring any last minute hurdle with certification or bugs or anything that could bump that back. But Remedy's own creative director, the great Sam Lake, friend of IGN, friend of Unlocked. He's been on Unfiltered. He made the announcement himself on The Sudden Stop, which is a great way. The Sudden Stop, if you're not familiar, is a long-running Alan Wake fan site. And that's just great that Sam and the team chose to make this announcement there rather than like on their own blog or on IGN or something. I think it's awesome that they went to the community for this. And Sam wrote in part, "This is for you," meaning the community. Alan Wake came out over 11 years ago, and through that time, you have told us again and again how much you love the game, the story, the characters, and the lore. And that matters a lot to us. We love this game as well. I love this game. The remaster is coming because of your support for Alan Wake through the years. And then later he adds, the original game was only available for Xbox 360 and a few years later, PC. We are thrilled about the opportunity to bring the remastered version out for a new generation of platforms. I'm excited to hear what you think about Alan Wake. Remastered is the original experience you fell in love with all those years ago. We did not want to change that, but the visuals all around, including the character model of Alan Wake himself and the cinematics, have been updated and improved with some choice next generation upgrades. I think, Miranda, you ran this one not too long ago, right? Weren't you doing this one on your personal channel?
Yep. I streamed this one. I did a whole Remedy thing. So I played Alan Wake and, of course, played Control. I kind of wish they would update some of the combat things. Like, that was probably the one takeaway that I didn't like from Alan Wake, was some of the combat feels not necessarily dated, because I feel like it wouldn't have been as... It just feels clunky. I like the idea of, like, oh, you got to use your flashlight to kind of solidify these ghost men before you can actually do damage to them. Like, that's fine, like these shadow creatures that you're fighting. And I don't mind necessarily that I have to aim a flashlight at this weird fridge that's going to keep getting thrown at me. But just some of the time, and I think the controls felt a little clunky. That being said, it's totally worth playing if you have not played it. The story is so much fun, and it can be a little scary. Alan is sort of such a weird dude, and I really liked his whole mystery here and how it unravels and how it proceeds. If you're a fan of Twin Peaks, you have to play this game. It's just so much fun, and I'm really glad we're going to get a graphical update. It's not that it looks bad. It's just, older game, and that's totally fine. So I'm glad that more people will get to play it this time around too. And I don't know, look out for Deer Fest. That's a great time in Alan Wake.
Oh, yes.
There are so many just like fun collectibles and things to notice, and it just gets a little spooky. Perfect October game. So I'm looking forward to seeing this come back out, and probably will watch some streams since I did just play it. I don't think I'm necessarily going to play it again, but it looks cool.
Yeah, I'm in the opposite boat in that I haven't played it since it came out. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going back in. It's I appreciate what you said about it kind of feeling old, in that it just reminded me that when I played it the first time in 2000, I don't know, what was that? 2010, I think. Yeah, 11 years. It kind of had an old school feel to it then. It had a very like old school PC game feel in a good way to me at that time. I wonder if I'll still feel the same way about it in 2021. But yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's not a short game. It's probably a good like 15 to 20 hours from what I remember. You would remember better than me, having played it more recently. But yeah, there's a lot of substance to it, and there's a lot of hilarious product placement, like
yes,
the Duracell batteries. And was it Verizon? I think is the other one.
I think so. I forget which other company. Like, there's just strange advertisements around. Definitely, if you do play, take some time and just look at things in the environment. Just take it all in. I wonder how that's going to change too, just given the visual upgrades. But yeah.
Destin, how you feel about Alan Wake coming back? Did you ever play it on the 360?
No, I never played it, so it might be a good time for me to check it out with this remaster. And just looking at it, it's giving me Control vibes, so it's sort of interesting to see how it potentially influenced other games in the future, But yeah, I never played it, never been super into Alan Wake, but looks like I got a chance to play.
Yeah, it's and quite honestly, I know we're on an Xbox podcast, but I'm very happy that this is the first time it'll be coming to PlayStation. And the reason for that, I'm going to tie it back into Xbox, is because it'll expose a lot more new people to this game and give them a chance to play it. And I mean, yeah, not just platform wise, but generationally, given that it has been 11 years. And if it goes well, if a lot of PlayStation fans and Xbox fans and PC fans alike enjoy it, that will hopefully only give some more momentum towards the thing we all really want, which is Alan Wake 2, which Remedy has sort of teased and for years said they want to do it. We're still not there yet. So that's kind of where I'm looking at this is as kind of a just greasing the wheels for a potential actual sequel that would be a full brand new next generation video game. And that would be pretty cool. But, go Go ahead, Miranda. Yeah.
Sorry, I just saw the video really quickly.
Oh, yeah. The
Night
footage we're playing.
Springs, guys. Please go in depth and like explore everything, watch everything. Sort of on that point too, Ryan. Sorry to interject with 2 points here.
Oh, please.
Did you play through the Control DLC for Alan Wake?
No, I still.
Okay.
I've not got. I know it's on my list.
I won't say anything then, but I think Remedy is gunning for another Alan Wake 2. I think that's
good.
That's the hope. The hints are dropped. Hopefully this remaster, exactly to your point, does well. And honestly, it's just nice to get to see people play this. And since Control is multi-platform, good for people on PlayStation to have that context for Alan Wake as well.
And the story is well worth playing through to the end at this, right? Miranda, would you agree that it's definitely, you get a good payoff here?
Yes, I would say so. It's a really great story. I thoroughly enjoyed my time like unraveling things. Also, there's just really funny characters. I'm just saying some stuff. I'm like, man, you. So I just hope you all enjoy it as much as I did.
What is it? The Nordic Viking rock band guys?
It's so good. I love them. Yes.
I forget their band name.
Gods of Asgard, I think.
Thank you.
Something.
Yes. Yeah.
Very excited I get to play this updated version. Where is Crossfire X?
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, you remastered Alan Wake?
Yeah.
Where's
it's not them. They're done, I thought. Is what we were talking about. Like, Remedy is, they're good for Crossfire X, and we're just waiting for the multiplayer or something, which I don't care about. I just want to play the game.
I'm not sure, but that is an interesting point to bring up, Destin. That this remaster will have announced and shipped before we ever get a date on Crossfire X and where the heck that game actually is. But yeah, well, I guess we might get a couple of Remedy developed games here in the next several months whenever Crossfire does finally drop. But yeah, really cool to see Alan Wake come back. I think it is reasonable at this point, given the the deal that's Epic signed with Remedy. If that Alan Wake 2 does happen, it's probably going to be multi-platform, unless Microsoft or Sony just backs up the Brinks truck and says, have a pile of money, we want this as an exclusive, which, I mean, for old time's sake, I'd love to see Microsoft do, but at the end of the day, as long as we get to play it, that's I just want it to exist. Alan Wake 2. So we'll have more on Alan Wake Remastered coming up on IGN before too long, I'm sure. So stay tuned. But yeah, that is an unexpected, pleasant surprise coming out of Remedy this week. Next up, let's see here. All right, we got some time. Good. Halo Infinite, you guys got to play the first multiplayer test flight that I was out of town for, so I want to go to both of you here. I'm going to start with Destin because I feel like poor Destin's been sidelined a bit this week. The motion sensor, Destin, in Halo Infinite was revamped in that first test flight. It was different than how the motion tracker traditionally has always operated in Halo. Well, 343 is going to put it back to more of the classic style version based on feedback from that first multiplayer flight. 343 saying, quote, "We've updated the combat sensor to feel more like the motion tracker of old, which shows all movement besides crouch walking, and should have that ready for folks to test in the next flight. Be sure to keep an eye on it and let us know how it plays." So then the radar section of the blog post is, so it's only one thing. They're also, let's see here, players also want, this is a Miranda joint, which we can get to her in a minute, but players want the Needler weapons audio to sound more crystallized.
Yeah.
And they want more granular control of each in-game voice, such as the personal AI, Spartan chatter, and even the multiplayer announcer. So, Destin, let me go to you here. How did that motion tracker, the combat sensor, feel to you in the beta? I didn't hear you guys talk about it, but certainly clearly the community was giving a lot of feedback on this. What were your thoughts while playing the test flight?
Yeah, I sort of saw this pop up within the community and people talking about how they just wanted more data, basically, right? So the fact that 343 was able to make that adjustment just means that, players are going to be happier with the new radar system, and I'm going to have more intel. So I'm not going to get, killed from behind when a player is sneaking up on me or something, if I'm paying attention to my radar appropriately. it wasn't a big issue for me, or it wasn't something I noticed at least during the game, because the gameplay is very solid for Halo for this flight, and I'm excited to play more. I want that next flight. I can't wait for the multiplayer release. Yeah.
Combat sensor, and now going back to more of the classic motion tracker style.
Very similar to Dustin. Happy to have more. I guess because we were playing against the bots so much, I wasn't as worried. Of course, I do keep an eye on my radar at all times, and that is very important if you're playing a shooter, but it wasn't too bad. But I think the change will be nice for sure. So just sort of in line with the community on, yeah, I appreciate the change, but like that additional information. If someone is walking or running around me, would like to see that.
Yeah, I mean, again, speaking, I haven't played yet, but I always liked the motion tracker in Halo. I never had any complaints about it. So, I mean, hey, I'm all for trying new ideas. Hey, let's try something new, change it up. But, the community seems to be voicing the sentiment of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it when it comes to the motion tracker. And kudos to 343 for taking that feedback and putting it in. Now, for all we know, maybe the final game will end up having like a toggle, like which for, there's so much customizability in Halo multiplayer that you could turn on, do you want combat sensor on, or do you want to go with motion tracker? But for now, for the next flight, we will go back to traditional motion tracker style. So get your crouch walking skills ready to go. That's the only way you're going to be able to sneak up on anybody. And we'll see how it plays. But hopefully we'll get some news on that second multiplayer test flight before too long. Next up this week, new Xbox Game Pass games for September. Destin, I'll throw it your way here. What do we have to look forward to on Game Pass over the course of this month?
Okay, before we go over Game Pass, make sure you pick up Zone of the Enders HD if you're an Xbox Live member, because it is a free game of September. I picked it up before we recorded the show. But for Game Pass in September, we got Craftopia, Final Fantasy X13 coming to console and PC. Signs of the Soldier.
I love how you counted that. Can I just pause for a second and say, I love that you went X123. Oh, so 13. Okay.
So 13 is really interesting because people are thinking that they enhanced it a little bit and kind of just did it quietly. So it's actually looking like it's the better version of 13. And then we got Surgeon Simulator 2, Crown Trick. How do you say? I want to go back to Signs of the Sojourner. Sojourner? Oh, okay. I don't know how to say that word. Breathage, Nuclear Throne, The Artful Escape, Red Dead Online. Oh, that's cool. Just the online component on cloud on console. That's September 13th. Company of Heroes 2, Disgaea 4, Forza Motorsport 7. That's a good one. Yeah, Hot Shot Racing. Forza's on September 15th. The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance Tactics, September 15th. Thronebreaker, The Witch Tales, September 15th. And that's it.
Yeah, that's everything, at least up through, the first half of the month. So we'll see about the rest of it later. But yeah, Artful Escape, that's the one that jumps out at me. I think, Miranda, that's been pretty well anticipated, has it not?
Yeah, so it's going to be an Annapurna release, and it's kind of been on a lot of people's radar for a long time. That was announced a few years back, and it just seems like a very colorful, music-heavy game. I'm not too sure all the details about it. It's not personally my style. Anything that's very 70s oriented usually isn't my vibe. And that's what kind of the vibes it was giving to me. And I was like, I'll just see how people like it. And then if it's a really good game, maybe I'll pick it up. But I mean, not hard to pick up when it's on Game Pass. So,
Yeah, onward Game Pass goes. And then we'll be rolling into Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite on Game Pass before too long. And then I guess the last news item I want to do for this week before we head on over to, of course, the loot box and the trivia challenge is that, very unsurprisingly, the DLC, the Top Gun Maverick DLC for Microsoft Flight Simulator, has been delayed because the movie got pushed out. Movies are now, for the most part, getting pushed due to the, primarily due to the Delta variant surge in the United States and people showing a reluctance to go back to the movie theater after it seemed like we were starting to get back to the movie theater. Now, maybe not as much. Like Jackass 4 got pushed, and a couple other things got pushed, including Top Gun Maverick. I think Tom Cruise's other movie, Mission Impossible 7, got pushed as well. So the statement attained by Eurogamer from Microsoft says Paramount Pictures recently shifted the release date of Top Gun Maverick to Memorial Day weekend, May 27, 2022. As we have previously announced, the Top Gun Maverick expansion for Microsoft Flight Simulator will be released alongside the movie. We look forward to sharing more information. So, well, no surprise there. But Destin, it's I wonder how many times this has ever happened where the video game tie-in gets pushed because of the movie. Usually, it's the movie comes out and like the game tie-in might not be ready and get pushed. So this is like an interesting role reversal from what we usually see with these things.
Yeah, that quote actually is like on the front page of Flight Simulator's
okay.
website.
Well, Eurogamer picked it up first.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, like they definitely confirmed that this is being delayed because of the movie tie-in, and it's a bummer because honestly, I was looking forward to zipping around in the jet, and the only jet on the marketplace right now, I believe, is fan made, and you have to pay for it. So that's not something I don't want to do that. I was waiting for Maverick. I talked about on previous episodes because of that, but I'm fine with waiting. It just looks so cool. In the meantime, I guess we can play the live air show races, which
Reno, the Reno air races.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that looks cool. It probably doesn't happen very often in the world of video games. Even forgetting about movie tie-in, but just where a game will be done. I mean, it's possible that they'll just stop working on this now and move on to other things, and then pick it back up next year as that new May release date approaches. But presumably, here in September, if this content was supposed to come out sometime this fall alongside the film, that this DLC is probably just about done, if not entirely done. And it's probably pretty rare in the video game industry, particularly the AAA video game space, where something will just go sit on a developer's shelf done for a while before they just, they'll put it out in 6 months, more than that, 7-8 months from now. So I find that just kind of interesting that they'll just dust that off in May and finally ship it out to everybody after finishing it here in late summer, early fall of 2021. All right, let's move on to the loot box here. Our question comes from Nathan this week.
Hey, Unlocked crew. My name is Nathan. I am a Twitch streamer and podcaster and a big fan of the show. And so I wanted to send in my loot box question for this week. My question is around this idea that Microsoft doesn't have the first party games or the new exciting game catalog to compete with the likes of Nintendo and PlayStation. I wanted to get your guys' opinions on that. Do you think that's correct? Do you think that Microsoft is just focusing on something a little bit different, maybe like a quantity versus quality thing? Are there priorities elsewhere with things like Game Pass, backwards compatibility, just throwing a ton of games at people, good games, but are they missing the target by not releasing these massive first party exclusives with huge stories or huge gameplay loops that keep people coming back and that are regular home run hitters like we see on other platforms? I'm a huge fan. Thank you guys for everything you do.
All right, thank you, Nathan. And a quick reminder before we answer this, I could use your loot box questions. If you'd like to be a guest of sorts, virtually speaking, on Podcast Unlocked, you can do that through the loot box. So tweet us your question, your Xbox question for the panel on video, post it on your Twitter page, tag me on it at DMC_Ryan, and you too, like Nathan, might be featured on an upcoming episode. So, Miranda, what do you think of Nathan's thought here about Microsoft's focus in AAA gaming?
I think this is something we've touched on, for the past few years, honestly, of Microsoft not necessarily having the same caliber of exclusives that we have seen from other companies. I think it's always difficult to compare with Nintendo because they are such a historied company. Although that doesn't necessarily give Microsoft an excuse to not have these banger AAA titles. But that's something that they've been working on. We've been seeing that. I think that's a big part of the studio acquisitions, right? Like that was them saying, hey, we want these different kinds of ideas, these different kinds of stories to exist on Xbox. And like we've said a few times too, Xbox historically was like the shooter box, right? Like it was a very mature system with a lot of focus on shooters. We had some great racing games as well. But now we're seeing that evolution happen more. So I think it's just a matter of time. I think that is the big focus. Whereas like Sony, I think has had that more diverse portfolio for a longer time. And of course, Nintendo has as well. But Microsoft is on the way. And honestly, like I would say, I know Ryan, you say also the time too, that there are, big exclusives like Gears that are just phenomenal. And I think people overlook that a lot because of like the aesthetic it presents, or maybe because it is a shooter. And honestly, I think some people sort of like downplay those a little bit sometimes in like the critical space, or at least in not necessarily just the critical space, but just in the opinion space of like the stories that those can tell too.
Right. Yeah. Dustin, how about you?
I think what he's trying to ask is, Sony has made a commitment to AAA games. They've released some really, really amazing experiences on the PlayStation platform, and even strengthening his question further, because he brings up other platforms. You bring in Nintendo, you got Metroid, Zelda, Mario Kart, all these franchises that are exclusive to that platform that draw people in. I disagree on the quantity over quality argument, because a lot of the third parties on Xbox are just as good on any platform. So to argue that they're somehow inferior because they're on the Xbox platform, I would disagree with. But he has a point about the exclusives. Xbox has been focusing on services for the last many years. Actually, we can play most games backwards compatible. Any game that you buy on the Xbox One will have a free next gen upgrade, including any it actually has at its disposal. And just in the last year, Xbox has begun releasing their exclusive lineup and doing things to ensure that they have those exclusive games going forward. Just thinking about the Bethesda acquisition, that is directly responding to the accusation that Xbox doesn't have any games that we've heard for years, right? Just this year, we've seen Flight Simulator, games like Psychonauts 2, which is a multi-platform. But as we go forward, we're going to see more exclusives that are in the Xbox ecosystem. We have Forza coming this holiday, and also Scorn, potentially Tunic this year, potentially Crossfire X. And then in the future, we have Fable, Starfield, Elder Scrolls, Hellblade, Avowed, Forza Motorsport again, Project Mara, State of Decay 3, Bright Memory Infinite, Stalker, Perfect Dark. So they are responding exactly how it seems gamers want them to. Xbox doesn't have any games. Okay, now what? We have the games. We have the console. We have free upgrades for all your games.
Yeah.
There's your answer. There's your response.
Yeah. Without the need for community pressure to get those free upgrades to the next gen platform too, which is always nice.
And Far Cry 6 was just announced to have a free upgrade no matter what platform you buy it on. So to see somebody like Ubisoft not charge $70, especially at a time when there's a constraint on console supply. People who want to get a PS5 can't.
Yeah.
So they're just paying that extra. It would have been $20 had there not been a backlash on the Horizon thing, right? And Sony has come out and said, hey, you want to play on PS5, it's going to cost you $10 more, period, going forward. And Sony fans seem fine with that. And the argument that I've largely heard is they believe that it's worth the $70 because they feel confident that they're going to get a great experience. If Xbox continues to keep their games at 60 and they offer games that end up being great, we don't know how good the games are going to be in the future, right? That is something that should be taken into account. But if they are of that caliber and they're offering them at $60, it's a further value proposition. And that's what Xbox has been doing for like the last few years. They've been building towards this. Game Pass, play games wherever you want, PC or console. And now we got the exclusives. So we've answered all of your criticisms, and here's our response.
Yeah, they're on their way. So good stuff there. And again, send in your loot box question. Tweet me with your video. Would love to have you on Unlocked. Meanwhile, quickly, we'll go through trivia here. There's Andrew from Milliken, Colorado asking, this is a good one. Which of these Xbox 360 exclusives received the highest IGN review score? None of us worked here when these games were reviewed. So this is just sort of a fun exercise and seeing if you can channel your IGN predecessors. So which of these got the highest IGN score? Was it Too Human? Was it The Outfit? Remember that one? Crackdown 2 or Full Auto? So we got a couple of third-party exclusives in there, a couple of first-party exclusives. I'm going to go Destin's way first on this one, and as you give your answer, I believe the score is tied, and I will double check.
Yeah, that's right, Miranda.
Yes, did I play last week? And
watch out!
Oh
no! 7-7 here, so
no.
Pressure's on from here on out. Destin, go ahead.
I'm going to go D Full Auto.
Okay, so that was the Sega Combat Racing game, which I remember well. We put that on the cover of OXM. I remember that back in the day. Miranda?
I don't know this one. I'm going to go B, The Outfit, because that's a cool name. I don't think it's right.
That was
my other guess, so that's a good guess.
Each of you, interesting that each of you picked the third-party game. Just, I know you didn't necessarily factor that in, but just an interesting choice. Unfortunately, neither of you are correct. It was Too Human with a 7.8. That was the highest score on IGN amongst those four. Yeah, Full Auto was, we put that on the cover of OXM. It did not score well in OXM. I think it ended up, the reason it stood out to me, because I think it ended up being one of the lowest scores that we ever gave to a game that was on our cover. And in the sense that before anybody twists that as, if you put the game on the cover, you gave it a high. No, because we would usually pick the bangers to put on the cover, the cover of the magazine, the stuff that we were pretty sure was going to be good. We were not correct on Full Auto with that one. So, Andrew, you have stumped the panel. Good job on that. If anybody else out there would like to try and do the same here as we continue in the quest to see who will win the Unlocked Block Trivia Trophy for 21, you can send your Xbox trivia question to unlocked@ign.com. Please include your name and then, of course, the question, 4 multiple choice answers, and then note the correct answer in your email. And with that, it is just about time to head on out of here. So, Destin, before we bid you adieu for a month or so, what should we be? Are we going to be finding you on your personal channel? Or are we just going to be checking the Destin archives here? What should we do?
Probably check the Destin archives. You can follow me on Twitter @DestinLegarie, and my personal YouTube is youtube.com/the Destin channel. But September is going to be a month for me. Let's just say that, and hopefully I'll have good news when I come back.
Yes, indeed. Miranda.
You can find me at Havoc Rose, and that's Havoc with a K on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and pretty much everywhere else. If you guys are interested in Twitch, I'm starting BioShock Infinite tonight, so that's Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. PT. It's my second playthrough. As far as IGN goes, definitely check out our Psychonauts 2 guide and all the other guides we're producing.
Fantastic. And I am on Twitter at DMC_Ryan. That's also I'm the guy that you tag for that aforementioned loot box panel question if you'd like to be part of the podcast. I don't think I've got anything of major significance to note as far as what's going on with IGN. So anyway, if you want to yell at me, that's the place to do it. And that'll do it for super producer Red, along with Miranda and Destin. I'm Ryan. This was Unlocked 510, and we will see you back here next week.